All right, Green Bay Packer fans, welcome here to Team Players Local Football Flavor, where today we are breaking down the Packers. Two fans talking about football, and the Green Bay Packers are today. So, Bob, I'm not even going to dive in the elephant in the room in the Rodgers loves thing. To me, the bigger long-term and potentially even systemic issue with the Green Bay Packers is they have 8 first-round picks on defense that they have drafted. That doesn't even count their signings. And that defense is nowhere near elite. On their best day, they're mid. Mm-hmm. To me, this is the crux of the Packers. If you keep using first-round resources, and a lot of them, and cumulatively it's not producing, well, then you're going to start having things like your offensive line start to slip. You're going to just have to be really lucky that you got 2 good running backs. Mm-hmm. And if all these second-round receivers don't end up being what you are, you're in a spot. So I love the skill players they brought on offense, but I can't look at the cumulative nature of all of their first-round picks and seeing it be mid and be all in with excitement about 2 tight ends in the second round and a short receiver. So this is – I'm not trying to be a wet blanket talking about the Packers, and this isn't even talking about the fact they just let a Hall of Famer walk out the door and they didn't even get a backup quarterback. So I have a lot of concerns with this team. And, yes, the most recent thing in my mind was them losing at home against Detroit and all the Detroit fans staying in the snow. I also love snow games, so they stick with me a little longer. But I got to tell you, I don't have the normal excitement about this team, despite the fact they have by far and away the best coach in the division. Like I feel like I've talked with all of these teams so far. I should have way more excitement about them than I do, and it mostly to me is coming back from looking at their results. Where's the defense at?
I'm going to say this, and it's not going to be well received by a lot of people. However, there are sometimes additions by subtraction. And I understand, and I said it in the Jets show, that Aaron Rodgers is a generational Hall of Fame talent. Mm-hmm. And I can't fight that. I just have a deep-seated, unnecessary, I guess, fantasy football-related hatred for him. And the fact that last year, and one of the things, and going back before last year, is just every offseason in recent memory for the Green Bay Packers has been basically like, will Aaron Rodgers stay? Will Aaron Rodgers go? What's Aaron Rodgers' mood? What's he going to decide? What did he eat for breakfast? Where is he at right now? What's happening? Like, in a football town, you would believe that, people would be interested in stuff like that. And people are, I guess. But when you're thinking about your Hall of Famer player on the field, yes, you want him to have a good personality. You want him to get along with other people. But I've seen it so many times where Aaron Rodgers was oftentimes both the savior and the doom of the Green Bay Packers to a degree. I'm not saying that with any, I'm taking the shade away, but I've seen it. And it's undeniable that in the games and in the playoff games and anywhere else, when he wanted to be there, the Green Bay Packers were a better team. Mm-hmm. When he didn't want to be there, this team fell off the rails, and it fell off the rails hard. And I think moving from an era, when you move from one Hall of Fame quarterback to another Hall of Fame quarterback to now Jordan Love. And it's something similar that we're thinking about in Pittsburgh as well when you move from Ben Roethlisberger to Kenny Pickett. Yes, there is going to be some fallout. Mm-hmm. However, Jordan Love has had 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2, to learn from Aaron Rodgers.
They had to take up his 5th-year option. They did that.
He's learned under Aaron Rodgers. And if memory serves me correct, Aaron Rodgers learned under Brett Favre. Mm-hmm. And so there is a lot of what we can call on paper high hopes that Jordan Love is going to turn out to be a guy that they can learn to trust. But there's also equal amounts to say we haven't seen enough of Jordan Love to make an accurate assessment of his talent. I believe he threw 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions when he's played, with like a 78-ish completion percentage, which isn't anything to write home about because, you know, he played when Aaron Rodgers didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking at it and say, okay, well, maybe they didn't feed him the whole playbook. Maybe they didn't give him this. Maybe they didn't give him that. But when we go back and we talk about Hall of Fame quarterbacks and what they can do, your coaches trust you as a Hall of Fame quarterback to make decisions on your own. And as quarterbacks get better, you get more trust. You get the leash taken away. And I don't know when that's going to happen for Jordan Love this year.
Well, it has to happen off day one. There has to be no leash. There's no backup. Who's going to replace him with?
Because this team's hopes, on offense at least, hinge on Jordan Love. Because if you
that's not what they're telling us.
If you think about it, they still have a supremely talented backfield, at least for this year. And they have 2 guys that really couldn't get their legs moving despite having some of the biggest quads in the world. You couldn't get them moving last year on the ground, but you could get them moving through the air, which was a very unusual thing to see out of these 2 players. Not unusual to say that they couldn't do it, but to say that that was their primary method of moving the ball down the field was giving the ball to their running backs in space and then going over the top to Christian Watson or to Romeo Doubs. Now,
that was Rodgers' fault, though, for the most part. In the strategies of football, I broke down a lot. They did a lot more run-pass options than they ever had before, and Rodgers just wanted to give him the ball.
All of that being said, when a young quarterback can lean on a tremendous backfield, your young quarterback tends to learn better, and your young quarterback tends to find more success. So we are hopeful that that can happen because Allen Lazard isn't a big loss. I mean, I watched the Packers, but I might not watch them enough to see how much of how important he was to the Packers, but it didn't seem like he was very important to the Packers. Maybe in the red zone, but that's about it. Christian Watson opening the top, Romeo Doubs. I think that the talent level that they have at wide receiver is essentially what we always have seen out of a younger-sided Green Bay Packers team. Like, it wasn't so many years ago that Davante Adams was young, and we are saying, okay, what's going to become of Davante Adams? It's not many years ago that we've been talking about, okay, guys like Donald Driver. You're thinking and you're looking and you're saying, okay. And there's a guy that I'm missing that was a big part of the Packers, and I can't remember.
I want to say that's rightish.
No. I can't remember at the moment in time. But when you look at the Packers on an offensive side of the ball, they're actually not set up as negatively as we want them to be, although they're not as confident in Jordan Love. Now, where this damaging thing for the Green Bay Packers
where I look at the way that they've set themselves up and what they're trying to tell us with this offseason is they are going to give Love as much protection as possible. And they're trying to make it as easy as – you don't draft 2 tight ends in the second round unless you're consciously turning around and saying, we're going to run the ball more. That was a mistake we made last year by not running it a lot. And I want to push back on that wide receiver part, because Watson, when he got the ball, basically all he did was score touchdowns. And LaFleur's not an idiot. And Rodgers, for all the things about him, loves scoring touchdowns, so he gets to do his dances. There has to be a reason he wasn't getting the ball a lot. And I believe it's going to be something that's not football related whenever the book is ultimately written on the guy. So when I look at this, you should be hearing all these things about we're ready for Watson to get J-Jeff type targets, ready to take this league by fire. He does so much with the ball.
I wouldn't say he's capable of that.
I think at the end of the day, they're saying he's not. He's not going to be. So
Right.
that's why we're getting massively tall tight ends, drafting another wide receiver in the second round, and basically showing we just want to hand the ball off. Because some of Watson's better plays, Love threw him the ball.
Yeah. And so here's the piece with the offense that, to get back to that, is that when Love will learn to develop that kind of respect for his wide receivers, Rodgers, to his credit, was able to develop that respect for that wide receiver room, but tended to target just specific guys. It felt like over and over and over and over and over again. Despite winning or losing, he would just go to that guy all the time.
Get your 8 targets to Cobb.
And over rely. Cobb's the guy I was thinking of, Cobb. So you say to yourself, are the Packers better? Well, logistically, maybe not, but I think yes, because
I think they're playing different.
The addition by subtraction will cause them to play differently and use the other talent on their team that is proficient. And I would say, and I would dare say, when people were drafting A.J. Dillon second and third round in fantasy last year and Aaron Jones first and second round, I would say now, instead of last year being the year, this is the year you got to do that. And I think it's going to pay off dividends for anybody in fantasy. But what we have to look at it from the Packers side of things is this defense. 8 first-round picks. 8. However, you have by far and away one of the worst safety combinations that you can possibly have. And
don't draft a government pick, guys. It's a bad strategy.
And your interior defensive line is undepthful. So as soon as one of those guys goes down,
I'm not even sure it's starting full, Bob.
You're pretty much writing the check on your game. Because let's face it, if you figured out Justin Jefferson, that's fine. But the Detroit Lions with a lot of weapons, that's going to be tough. And let's not forget that Justin Fields can run for days and days and days and days and days and days and days. Mm-hmm. So is this a damaging thing for the Packers? Maybe not, because they do play, like we keep saying, the NFC South. Watch the NFC South turn out good. I don't see it, but watch them turn out good.
We're going to have a different opinion about who's going to win it, but they're not going to be good.
But when you look at, are they going to beat the Chiefs? No. Are they going to beat Justin Herbert? Maybe if Herbert decides he doesn't want to play. Is he going to beat Russell Wilson? There's a chance. And will Jimmy Garoppolo be able to throw? Maybe. I just don't.
This is my problem with this team. We said this with a couple of other franchises so far. They're incongruently built to win. Mm-hmm. To win with a solid running game, you need to have a good defense. On paper, this defense should be amazing. I would love to have seen what Flores would do with all this first-round talent. That would be crazy dirty.
That could be an exceptional team.
They're going to be. They're telling you, we're running the ball more. They might still go verticals in their passing decisions and pushing the ball downfield, which I think would very much help them. But at the end of the day, they're going to be pushing to run the ball more. And when you're running the ball more, you need to have your defense to be able to shut people down. And the track record with these first rounders isn't there. That's my problem with that.
I see this as tracking more like the Atlanta Falcons of last year. I see this
possibly
being a very good running game where you're probably going to see a lot of yards coming from this game. You're going to see a defense who will start off in games pretty well, but as the game wears on, there's no tightening up. There's nothing really happening there, and they're all still relying on their individual talents. And then Jordan Love will make a mistake late in the game, and I see the Packers as a 7-win team, maximum at a 10-win team. So like we said about Minnesota and Detroit, if those games swing any different direction, you could be talking about the Green Bay Packers taking a couple games that they maybe shouldn't from Detroit or from Minnesota. Then you go and you look at who they play as their wild card teams. Who are their wild card teams again, Joe?
Steelers,
Steelers,
Giants, and the third place team in the West. So Arizona.
All right. Arizona, that's a win.
Should be.
That's for all intents and purposes. Steelers, that's going to be a tough game for them depending on how Kenny Pickett develops. And the Giants is also going to similarly be a tough game.
It might be the Rams. It's either, not like it matters. It might be the Rams finished third place at division last year. But again, not like it matters.
Either way, there's a lot of decision-making things that they're going to have to make with their personnel. But like you said, they stick to the running game. It makes it incongruent to what they want to do on defense. And that defensive piece is going to guide what this offense does. And I think if Jordan Love has opportunities to pass, that we might see a better player than what we see right now. But I don't see them getting past 10 wins. And I think a more realistic expectation is 7.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And I think to think that he's going to be anywhere near Rodgers, is unfair. But, I mean, the reality is that they saw what he was in practice this whole time, and they saw Rodgers, for lack of a better words, be a complete utter pain in the ass for the last 4 off seasons since they drafted Love. And only now were they confident enough in making the trade when essentially they didn't have an option, because you had to give Love his 5th-year option this offseason. You have to see what he is. And when you look it all up, their off-season moves, despite what any of the words coming in their face are, their off-season moves are not very indicative of confidence in slinging the ball around the field.
And here's the thing, too, Joe. I just looked on FanDuel. Packers wins are set at 7.5.
But they had the same Super Bowl odds as the Vikings?
They had the same Super Bowl odds as the Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are sitting at 8.5.
Yeah, that Vikings bet's a much better bet. But yeah, like I said, decent story in following a legend and all that fun stuff. I just don't see a scenario where it's going to be great. Although, no doubt it'll be better than tomorrow's team. Green Bay Packers. Do they have a song? It seems like the kind of old school team that would have a song. Something Wisconsin-y.
I don't think so.
Why do they wear suspenders around all the time? I need to know this. I need to talk to a fan from Green Bay.
They're fat and holding up their pants. I don't know, maybe.
We need some Green Bay fans on here.